I appreciate someone telling me that. I told you I'm a little slow on this. But we burned up 13 minutes going across it. I'll hit on the hive again. Basically, when you get started in bees, you're going to have to make the decision if you're going to go with a 10 frame, an 8 frame, or a 5 frame. And each setup has got a good reason for it. 5 frame is used to make a lot of nukes, make queens. Also, it's for people that have a problem lifting weight up. That's why I use all 8 frame. 8 frame will actually build up a whole lot faster and be stronger and don't swarm as much as your 10 frame stuff does. 10 frame stuff, my experience, I grew up on 10 frame and I run 10 frame stuff for 20 some years. The outside frames on 10 frame barely ever get used. So in order to get them to draw them out on all new foundations, you have to move some of the center ones to the outside. And when you do that, then you're doing a lot more manipulations than you need to. The 5 frame medium nukes is good for people, people that's maybe handicapped, got a wheelchair or some, and have less mobility and can't lift much. They go all mediums, 5 frame, and they can put the box right across their lap and actually go out there and work the bees. But now there's people that will go all 8 frame mediums, which, if you're going to sell nukes in the future, you want to think about the market. You got market out there that's going to buy mostly 10 frame, but you have a lot of people who want the mediums. So getting your hive, picking out what you want to run, and then go with that. And if you're new, you're going to buy bees and you don't have any mentor around or anybody to help you, the best thing to do is to buy a nuke. It's already established. And this established nuke, you still always have a possibility that it would leak or leave on you. The main thing on the package is you could buy 2 packages sometime, maybe 2 or 3 packages for the price of a good nuke. The nuke is an established hive where you have a queen that's running in the box and you have brood of different ages. You have honey in there, you have pollen, so you have a better chance of being successful. So what you want to do is compare what you want to do. Biggest suggestion I would do is if you're going to buy bees from anybody is do some research on them. I've heard several stories where people is having problems with delivery of their product or not getting their product. That's unfortunate for the beekeeping industry. We got people out there who take your money and not make a delivery on it. But as far as equipment goes, you can build all that stuff yourself. It doesn't have to be fancy. Just make sure your box will hold a 19-inch long frame and it's at least 10 inches deep. As far as equipment, you can get by with not having a smoker. You don't need to buy no bee suit. You can go down to Walmart and you can buy some mosquito netting and get you an old safari hat or even one of those wide brim straw hats and pull that mesh over it. And those meshes is like a mosquito net, which is about $2, maybe $2.50, $3. As far as a smoker, why blow $20, $30? I mean, you can put some liquid smoke on your palm, rub it on your hand, all over, and then rub it on your face and neck. Bees are going to be less likely to sting you then. So as far as the equipment, you can get in there, build the stuff yourself with basically a square and a skill saw. You don't need to go buy all that expensive stuff and I don't suggest a new beekeeper getting a catalog and buying a starter kit because there's more stuff in the starter kit that you won't need. I don't use a bee brush, and if you use a bee brush, you're more than likely to end up getting stung. See, Joe May say the call in the icon is not up on the screen. Let me see what we're talking about. We're recording now. Okay, open seat now. So we have an opening there. you'll have to bear with me. I'm a little slow on learning this stuff. That works, huh, Joe? Okay. Joe's helped me from Indiana. Usually have Eliza over here. He's giving me a hand, but he's not able to make it tonight. I guess he got late coming in. All right. Eugene is going to join us tonight. All right, Eugene, if you're wanting to get in there, just ask you a question here. You got to turn your camera on and your mic so we can hear you.
I keep hearing that southern bees won't make it up north. What's your feelings on that?
Well, I don't know who told you that. There's a lot of people that give a lot of bogus information. I have a student in Indianapolis, Indiana. It's called Indy Bees. He buys a lot of bees, sells them to a lot of people up there, and we don't have no complaints. I have another student north of Chicago. Not a problem. I sell bees in New York. I've got them all the way going up into Portland, Maine. I don't know who would say that. Bees adapt. You know, you can ship them up basically up to Alaska. Yeah, they're going to adapt. The aggressiveness of the bee is another thing we're talking about, you know. So, but you know, I'm glad.
Right.
I'm glad
just
you asked
interesting.
that.
I'm here in Pennsylvania.
Ed Davis is over there in Pennsylvania, and he's not having a problem. Joe May, he's up there in Indiana. Bees absolutely adapt.
Yeah, yeah, I haven't had a problem. But a lot of the clubs up here keep saying, you don't want the bees from down south. You don't want them from down south. Well, I'm from down south and moved up here. I'm doing just fine, and so do the bees.
You know, there's a lot of people will tell you a lot of different things. I always tell people that when someone tells you that, ask them, where do you actually buy your bees rig up to this up north? I don't know of a lot of beekeepers above Mason-Dixon line selling bees commercially. 90% or more are coming out of the south, or they're coming out of California. So, you know, it's a lot of people say a lot of things, and you've got to take it for what it's worth. Are you a new beekeeper, or do you have some?
All right, thank you, sir.
2 years?
Yeah.
How many?
2 years now.
How many hives you run?
2 years now. Yes, sir.
4?
4.
Good, good.
4.
You making honey with them, or are you trying to make increases?
No, we don't like that honey. There's just too much of that stuff.
Did you watch my video somewhere? Well,
yes, sir, I mean, all the time.
I can teach a person to make honey if you listen to the videos just by putting a hive top feeder on top of your hive. You will actually make 1 gallon to 3 gallons more honey because you've got every single bee going in and out of that box, not 20, 30% falling water back.
Oh yeah.
See, all my all the videos I do is based on common sense. So I like people to jump in, ask questions, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I was just wanting to get your clarification a little bit on that because I'm afraid new beekeepers up here won't order a package or anything from down south because that's what they're being told.
Well, there's a lot of people out there, you know, everywhere, north, south, everywhere, say replace your queen every single year.
Of course.
You know, I have queens run 3 to 5 years. And the majority of people that bidding bees a little bit, they understand that a queen is actually going to do her best on the second year. And
oh yes,
so
yes,
that shoots
absolutely.
down a lot of stuff, you know, people put out there. And that's why I do these chats. It's like people save their foundation from their supers from year to year. Well, the only way you're going to save it is put it on mothball crystals, or hope that, you know, if you crisscross it, hope that you don't get any mice in there. And I have done studies down here. Of course, I don't have no bias against the universities doing their studies. I found what people say. Comb that's already drawn out, the bees get in there and make honey faster or more. And I've set 10 hives up in a location with broad comb and all new comb, and actually made more honey with the new comb.
Yeah. Oh, when we had them in the nukes, we were making twice as much honey until we put them into the 8 frames. Now they make enough to get through the winter. Well, you
might be getting a mite problem because bees are going to do 2 basic things. They're going to store honey and multiply. And if you're, if you're not making honey, either you don't have a honey flow around there or you might have a mite problem. So a lot of beekeepers, if they're not really experienced, they say, I don't have no mites. I don't treat, I haven't seen any mites, so they don't have mites.
Oh, no. I think everybody's got mites.
You got to do
Everybody's
something
gonna have
to
mites.
keep them things under control.
Yep. All right, I don't want to take up no more of your time, Don. Thank you, sir.
Okay, if anybody else wants to jump in there, welcome to jump on in there. I'm glad we're getting questions. Don't be bashful, and I don't have every answer for you, but we will try to get a satisfactory answer for you. Michael, glad you can join us. I guess Michael's having a problem with his microphone. Okay, let's see, Don. Let's see, would like to know, is good to have more than one breed of bee? Well, yes, it's good to have more than one bee. It depends on basically what you want to do. I don't recommend buckfast because they're raised usually in an area where you have a higher chance of getting your Africanized bees. Buckfast has a bad thing jumping back. They go back to 2nd generation or into the 3rd generation, they start to get a little bit ill. Now there's about 3, maybe 4 lines of that carniolan, which is a good bee. I mean, you have to look at what you want to do. If you want to make honey or comb honey, strained honey or liquid honey, or do you want to make nukes up? And you want to work your bees on hot days, those are the things you consider. The Russian bee, there's just like the Russian and the carniolan, they're based on the pollen. A lot of pollen's coming in, they go to town, they're laying. When the pollen starts to shut down a little bit, they back off a little bit. So those are 2 things there. If you're going to make high-end comb honey, I would say your Caucasian bee. People like them for the reason they make really nice white wax. But on the other hand, some people say, no, I don't like that because they propolize the hive too much. This man wants to know if I think gardeners should have bees. Well, if you're raising just flowers, you might get away with enough native pollinators, but anybody that's gardening, doing garden, vegetables, stuff like that, you need pollinators. So I would recommend getting 1 or 2 hives in there. Okay, Michael, if you want to jump in there, you can get. He said he's in the process of requeening. Okay. Ed says he believes Man Lake gets their bees off the almonds. I don't know that. I mean, the majority of your larger bee supply houses up north are getting them mostly from the south. And I haven't heard much people other than buying tractor trailer loads of bees from the almonds. Organic people are not really getting into that because they use so much chemical out there. Okay, let's see. Would I confine the bees to make queen cells? When do I pull queen cells? Yes, I prefer letting the bees make their own natural queen cells. It's far superior than sitting there grafting, because when you're grafting, you're basically just cloning. You're cloning one genetic, you're cloning one race, you're cloning one color. So that's, the bees can pick a better queen from the stock that you're using than what we can. And I don't recommend pulling a queen out of a hive to make queen cells. I prefer running them in a single and feeding them good. And when they get crowded, they're going to start making cells. That's the natural thing. 66 says he saw there's a lot of commercial sites on Facebook that had a lot of thefts lately. That there has basically been going on for years. They're just, the things happening there is a lot of people are getting into bees, and then they want to start making big money. And what's happening, they don't have money to start up, so they're going out there and they're stealing other people's stuff. So that's the thing on that there. But you're always going to have people wanting to steal your bees.
Yeah, Don, there's a question there you missed. The lady wanted to know how you requeen an existing hive.
How do you requeen an existing hive?
Yeah.
Well, first you have to make sure that that's really what you want. If the queen is laying, there's no need to replace her. Unless you have a genetic there that's aggressive, then I would suggest just pull the queen out of that hive and leave it queenless for 1 to 2 days. Then put the queen in there in a queen cage that you want to install there. That would be the best thing.
Don't have a question on my wax. Like this year, I had commercial foundation, but I only put starter strips in. Would you be afraid to melt that down and reuse it? Because most of the wax is my wax.
Yeah, well, if you've got no wax, some wax is better than none. So you're using a starter strip. So you're basically, they're going to just use that as a base. You're not going to have that high percentage of pesticide in it. Far better than to use the whole sheet. The starter strip that you use, they'll build a stronger, heavier comb in it anyhow.
Okay. Well, that's all the wax I've got to melt down is that way. You know, it's got a starter strip on it, and then they made their own.
Do you belong to any bee clubs around there?
No, not yet.
I would join some bee clubs or go there and, talk to people. There's a lot of people that accumulate a bunch of wax when they extract. And unless their wife gets into making candles or they're trading it in at the bee supply house as a trading, they trade so many pounds and get so much pounds of Meetup foundation back. You can buy wax, and if you pay them twice as much as the bee supply houses there are paying, you end up getting a better wax. I have people that I know that don't use chemical. They bring me their wax, and I buy it outright. Your companies out there are paying anywhere from $1.50 to maybe $1.90. And the biggest problem I see with that is you're giving them good wax, and you're getting wax that you don't have no history on it. You don't know what chemicals was put on it. And if somebody's hives died from something, you don't know what's in that wax contaminated. So I can offer people $3 to $4 a pound. The biggest thing on these supply houses, you take 100 or 200 pounds down there. I don't care how clean you get it. They're going to knock off a pound to 10 pounds sometimes just to say it wasn't clean enough. It's just another way I think they scam you. I haven't dealt with a lot of them. I've dealt with about two, 3 companies in the past, and I haven't bought wax since about 1990, maybe 89. Then that's when I start buying my first wax mill. Wax mill, sometimes when you're buying, you think, that's a big investment. I made a mistake. I thought it for a while until I start seeing the results. Within 90 days, I seen the results right then. And then the total cost, when you start taking 300-400 pounds of waxing, and when I started doing bees way back there, you could take beeswax in and they would make it up for 40 cents a pound. Then it climbed up. I think the last back in 90 was about $1.40 a pound, $1.30 a pound. So you're paying for something, you're not getting a good product back. So you're left with that. You have to do it yourself. Keep it clean. Chesapeake Bees wants to talk about oxalic acid vaporizers, timing of treatments. Well, you can basically, anytime bees are flying, you can treat. Now, are you treating for preventative treatments, or are you just trying to knock your mites down? I would say if you're knocking mites down starting in the spring, you probably could do it probably twice a month for at least 2 treatments. Then you could probably go back to about once a month. You've got to break the night cycle. We go sometimes 3 or 4 months here without doing treatment with oxalic acid because my yard is not set up basically as a functional yard to do much of anything. It's set up as a learning yard. So if I get new students and they want to learn how to use a vaporizer, I put them out there. Matt was out here one time, I think, and he'd done 4 or 5 hives, and I had another fellow from Kentucky a month or 2 before that, and he had run those hives. But if I was to do every treatment on these bees that I, can do for mites, whether it's your essence of oils or mineral oil or fogging or vaporizing, I'd been in out of these hives too many times. So I'm here basically to teach. I'm teaching different methods, and the person has to figure out which one suits them the best. If you're going to have more than 10, 15 hives, I would strongly say buy a vaporizer and use electric one. Don't try to get in some people are trying to build their own, and they're building them, they call them a crack pipe. And you're on too close to the ground, and you breathe that vapor, and it's not good for you. So buy a vaporizer. The treatment on a beehive is pennies. It's a whole lot cheaper to invest in a good vaporizer. Don't have mites. If you're using a vaporizer, you won't lose a hive unless they start. Matt is a new beekeeper and taking classes, beginning bee classes at a local bee club. Taking bee classes at local bee clubs is a good thing. Look around the bee club and find one of your older beekeepers there, and that's the best teacher you can get if you can get him to come up and give you a hand. And he can point out things that the bee club is not going to come out basically and do. They're going to give you a general usage terms and stuff like that. They'll just say, this is a hive box, this is a super, this is a hive tool, this is a frame, this is foundation, and they're going to give you very basic stuff. So I belong to bee clubs, and they put on what they call a short course. So it just depends on the bee club. You can spend 8 hours at a beginning bee club and get a good knowledge of what's going on. All right. I hope that answered Jim Stevenson's answer or question about the vaporizers. But if you want to jump on the camera, we'll let you in here. Okay, I guess no one wants to jump in. How do I keep hives from swarming? They're crowded and making cells. Well, that's money in the bank. That's basically a good ATM right there. That's a good thing to have. But the thing that people is not realizing is strong honey hives are always on the borderline of swarming. They have to have high numbers. So if you got queen cells, for every hive you got, you should have a minimum of 4 nuke boxes to go in there and salvage those cells. And even if you made queen capsules and put one frame that had cells on it, whether it's 2 cells, 10 cells, whatever's on there. A queen capsule, if you're fast enough, when one queen hatches out, you go back and you can move that frame to another queen capsule. And sometimes you can make 5 or 6. Or as if you have 3 or 4 queens that just hatched, you can take a virgin queen and go to a nuke that has no queen in it and has been queenless for 24 hours. And I don't suggest putting her in directly. I have better luck just putting her on the entrance and letting her walk in. But now we're talking queens that have been hatched out within an hour to 3 hours. The longer they've been hatched out, they start to develop a pheromone. Those bees, when they first hatch out, they're like a baby. They don't have much smell to them yet. So the bees will accept that virgin queening now. Okay, let's see if anybody else got a question. Where do you live? I I live in South Georgia. Not South Georgia. I live in North Georgia. I'm still living in the past. That's where I used to run a bunch of hives in South Georgia. I'm trying to read 3 different sides of this chat this here. And I'm old. You got to forgive me. Matt wants to know how often do we meet here? We try to have a chat every Saturday, unless we have a holiday comes up. But I'm basically in here to answer questions and help the new beekeeper, the experienced beekeeper, commercial beekeepers, whatever. Most commercial people are too proud to ask for any help. They'd rather blunder through it. Okay. If someone lived south of Bloomington and works in Smithville. Okay. Let's see. William wants to know, does it matter what type of wood when making a box? Any wood that you can get for free works good. I basically don't use cedar. It's just not a good thing for bees. It's one reason cedar was used in people's closet. If you got a grandmother or your mother and you live in an older house, they used to line clothes closets with cedar because it was repelling bugs and killing the bugs. And when you put cedar out in the sun, no matter what species of cedar, it's a pesticide. It starts to outgas. If you took eastern cedar or western cedar and actually press it, that's called a pesticide, and it will kill bugs. So a lot of stuff is ration it out, think about it. Nothing's high tech in beekeeping. It's just a lot of work. Okay, see anybody else got a question? I see we have
Are you putting ventilation hose in your mini nukes?
Yep, we are.
Just one?
We're putting, we used to use, my son is starting to build all new ones, and we're adding to the ones we have. And we're using a 1-inch hole on the back side of the feeders for the minis. And we was using on our mating boxes, we was using a 3/4 hole, and he's going to experiment around. He put 1-inch holes or 7/8, I forget, it's a large bit. To use for the mini nukes. How much ventilation do Mr. Jones wants to know, how much ventilation do I rent in southern Indiana? Well, you can't have too much ventilation, but you can have not enough. We have somebody else joined us here. You don't want to try me, get your ass robbed with this pretty bitch. I guess there wasn't a beekeeper. All right. I guess we get all kinds of people. I guess we had one last week and Lazarus caught it. Because I'm trying to look at both sides of this screen at one time. Chesapeake said they just make 8 frame boxes. What do you think of using wood sealer liquid? Nope, I don't use no sealer. The bees will actually seal the box up. I use no sealers. I don't paint the inside of a box, and I don't use glue. Evening, Mr. Baker.
Yeah, I had a question.
Sure.
I had 2 beehives, and very good beehives, and one. You can tell there are a lot of queen cells in there, so apparently the queen cell. But the other one, everybody was gone. I mean, the hive was clean. There's 50 pounds of honey left in there, and they left me like Christmas. I'm here in Ohio, so
well, there's no bees at all.
None, and it's almost like somebody swept the hive out. It was perfectly clean.
Well, I'll tell you. I've been doing bees a long time, and this past year is the strangest year I've seen. I've seen a lot of swarms October up into November, and I don't know if it's because of the jet stream coming down so low, or the El Nino, or what it is, But as far as your box there is, I would save that honey and use it to set up. Your box that's got queen cells in it, if it's loaded, that there was no queen cells in the one that left.
No, there's nothing in the one that left, but the other one that had the queen cells, there was dead bees, and I found some mites at the bottom of that one. I could see the little.
Is there bees still in the hive that has the queen cells?
Nope, empty.
Both hives empty right now?
Yep.
That's strange. A lot of times you can get hives that are swarming out in the fall. And if there's not enough drones around, they don't remate or don't get a good mating. So that's sometimes the problem. It's hard to tell without looking at it.
I had fresh wax in there, and all my wax was just 1 year old. Would you say I should reuse it, or should I get rid of it?
Well, if it doesn't smell bad and you're not sure, I mean, you could melt it down. I mean, that would be one thing. But if a hive just absconded on you like that with the honey, I wouldn't think you had a disease problem. If you had any kind of bad disease, you would smell it.
Right.
So I would reuse the honey. If take the wax that you got and melt it down. I mean, are you using chemical?
Oh no, I haven't. I didn't treat them either with the acid or nothing. I just went all natural. I had 4 hives. I got 1 hive left. So they're all in a row. So I got 1 hive doing good. So I don't know what happened.
Well, I mean, it's good to go all natural. I'm all for anybody who can do that. But in all the years I've been keeping bees, you have to do something. There's minimal treatments. Then there's some that are a little bit more aggressive. At the very least, if you don't want to use chemical, you could have put paper towels on top of the frames and just put mineral oil on that. That is a slow kill to mites because they'll crawl on it and don't hurt the bees. If the bees walk it or get on it, it suffocates the mites. They're very slow to die that way, but there's no chemical.
Mm. Well, I'm just curious. I caught a wild hive, and they had a laying worker in there. Just shook them all out. Well, they went into all my other hives. So I hope I didn't put something in there that screwed it up, if that was bad but. Well,
there's a lot of debate right there. A wild hive, if it's lived out in the wild very long, more than likely it's healthy. They're either going to swarm from a wild hive because of the cavity's too small. They can't overwinter with enough honey. Or maybe the queen didn't get mated well. Because the population of bees across the nation has dropped so low now that you could have 4 or 5 hives, and if you don't get good mating on your hives from wild bees and enough different drones in your hives, you're not going to produce a good enough queen. But I would treat with something. It's too much of an investment to lose.
Right. The one that's living and doing the best, they made their own queen, and they're still alive out there.
Well, 15 minutes ago, I was talking about naturally making queen cells far superior than graft. Those bees can see and know a lot more than what we do. We can get by and we can clone a lot of stuff and make it work, but that could be one reason why people are requeening every year. I've even seen people that requeen twice a year because they think you're going to make more honey. But anybody that's on this chat that's had bees very long, they'll tell you that the second year queen is doing far better than that first year queen. So, there's different ways to look at it. I try to do everything with common sense.
Yep, I watch all your videos. I'll try to I'm gonna buy new bees and we'll give her another shot.
Well, do this research a little bit. I mean, I can't tell you where to buy them. I mean, buy them from somebody that has bought bees from that party before, and a little bit of the history, just to pick a number out of the book and say, I want this, or some bee supplier, bee company, or a bee club. Sometimes you can get a good deal with a bee club because they bought from people in the past. There's a lot of people got a good name out there, but then there's a lot of people that you've got to watch.
Right. Do you recommend trapping bees? I mean, get my local bees, and you think that'd be a better shot at them?
Well, My bees live down here, and if you had them in your place, they'd be local there, wouldn't they? So
Right.
bees adapt. Basically, you want good stock. If you looked at a lot of the videos, you see I have a lot of women that work with no bee suit. A lot of them are working in the summertime, shorts, flip-flops. I have men that come out here and they're working these bees in shorts, t-shirt, So genetics is your most important thing. Get bees that you can work, that you can handle. Price of bees is not the biggest thing.
Right. I'd be willing to pay whatever they wanted if I had bees, if I knew they were going to be good ones and make it the whole time. So yeah, the price doesn't matter to me, but.
Well, you're going to have to do some type of treatment. I have showed on videos doing dusting with powder sugar. I mean, there's people,
right.
It will knock the mites off, but it doesn't kill them. It's like, I used to live in Ohio. It's like putting ball-headed tires on in the midwinter and expect you're going to go somewhere. Evening, Ricky.
Hey,
I mean, take a lot of different, things and kind of weigh it out. You got a question?
Well, thank you, Don.
Ricky?
Yes, I've got a question about the Queen Castle.
Right.
Okay. If you use the vaporizer, can you use the vaporizer on the Queen Castle?
Not very well, because it's got a solid bottom. You could use a fogger, which is actually a bug killer. It's made for mosquito control. You can put mineral oil in there, which mineral oil by itself, you could drink it. It's basically a laxative. You can add wintergreen to it. If you don't have a real high mite count, you put you about 20, 25 drops of wintergreen in there. Or if you want to get a really good knockdown, put you a quarter of a teaspoon of thymol.
Okay.
When you got to make sure it's liquefied when you go to put it in that bug sprayer. That'll give you a good knockdown.
Okay. One other thing, I've started to feed my bees. Well, I'm in around the Orlando, Florida area.
Right.
So I've started to feed them sugar water. Because I've seen the population kind of went down a whole lot. So is this a good time to feed them?
Well, in Florida right now, your population should be growing, to tell you the truth. So when you say your population is dropping, are you going all the way down on the beehive to the bottom board? Have you checked them, inspected them?
Yes. Well, what I did in November, I messed around and I did some splits with about 30. Well, I started off with 13. I went to 30 with split. And when I made the split, I lost everything, and I'm down to 12 now. And I only had honey, no brood or anything like that.
Well, if you have a ripe queen cell, I make my splits with a frame of honey. You don't need brood if you have a ripe queen cell. So right where you're at in Florida, you should be making splits right now. I mean, that's the advantage of where you're at right now. There's plenty of pollen. Right now there's good honey flows. Temperatures are right. You could hardly do anything wrong making queens and making splits down there.
Okay.
Queen Castle, I mean, if you're worried about treating them, I mean, you could take a little bit of oregano, put it in a blender and make a powder out of it and just dust the top of the frame in each section of a Queen Castle, and it'll help knock the mites down.
Okay.
I mean, there's a lot of organic things to manage your mite problem. If I was to get up here and tell you every organic thing that we could teach you, it'd be hours and hours, and a lot of people would be bored. They want some action.
Hey, I'm gonna try to come up there pretty soon. I do lawn service, and that's back-breaking work, so I gotta do something different.
One of my students that was here this morning, she came for 2 days. That's what her husband does. He does lawn service, landscaping, and he said sometimes he does one lawn right after another, and it's just he don't like it. The main thing you want to do, don't get into bees because you're going to get rich. Get into the bees because you really love it. When you love it, you don't mind putting the hours in. And bees is where the money's at right now. You can sell everything that looks like a bee right now. There's so many shortages of bees everywhere.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Like I grow my own gardens and stuff. You know, like I've been doing that since I was a kid. So basically, you know, I'm all for like environmental.
Right.
Yeah.
Get you good breeding stock and have good gentle bees, and you don't have to advertise. If you got the good bees there that are productive, overwinter good, there's no need to spend lots of money on advertising.
Right. Yeah, that's what I've been trying to tell a friend of mine. You know, she buying this and that and that. And I said, only thing you got to do is watch Dawn, you know, and you'll get your answers. And she constantly want to buy this and that and that. So,
well, that's one of the main things why bees are having problems. The bee catalog has too many gizmos and gadgets in there. Beekeeping is basically simple. There's not a thing to make it complicated. The beekeeper is the person who's making it complicated.
Right. Well, thanks much. I appreciate everything you do.
Okay. Thank you. Subscribe to the channels on YouTube. That way you'll get a notice when we do our new videos and stuff.
Okay, I sure will. Thank you.
Okay. Appreciate you. Somebody else went up. What? All right. Let's see here. This man wants to know, what is the advantage of using mini nukes over 5-frame nukes? Well, the main advantage of doing that is basically you could get a ripe queen cell and you just put a cup of bees in there. That's all you need, just enough to make the queen and keep the queen warm until she hatches.
Can't lay them on the floor like a mattress. Young bays died in the Olympics. Say fucking bitches. Got the
Someone's like to play music tonight. Okay, how many nukes can I make from a split 1 nuke a year? No. If you got a 10-frame box and you want to make splits into a 5-frame nuke, you basically, if you're running a double deep 10, you can make 18 splits off of it, providing that you have ripe queen cells that are ready to hatch. That's what we call a ripe queen cell. And let's see if we got any more questions. Before you start making a lot of splits, make sure you got enough boxes, because once you start the process, one hive can turn into 15, 20 overnight. Yes, I did say 18 nukes. Now, basically what I'm doing is pulling 1 frame out of each of the box, and I'm replacing it with new, and I leave the queen in the original box. So I'm adding a ripe queen cell to the 5-frame nuke. And I don't add no brood to it until the queen returns. And when the queen returns and I see she's laying, then I go to a hive that I have maybe 1 or 2 frames of bees that are hatching, where I actually can watch the bees hatching. That way I don't have any chill brood. And I'll add that to the nuke. And when each frame hatches out, that's like putting 1 pound to 1.5 pounds per frame of bees when they hatch. Now you have to keep feed on them because you got a lot of new mouths out there. The bees are too young to fly. They can't go out and get the grub, so you have to put some sugar water in. Or you got honey. You use the honey. That wants to know the details of my YouTube channel. My YouTube channel is the Fat Bee Man, and any of the videos, there's 300 learning videos up there. They're free to watch. Just like the channel, subscribe to it. All that work that I do is basically volunteer, and if you want to make a donation, I won't kick it back to you. I appreciate it. So it does help. When I have a lot of students out here, sometimes the students help me shoot these videos, and when we start touching on different things or something somebody else hasn't seen, we try to do a video on it. So I got a little bit on just about all the different topics.
Yeah, Don, there's a couple questions you missed there while you was talking. The guy wants to know how high you can stack the boxes.
How high can I stack a 5-frame box?
It doesn't
I
say
have some.
Yeah.
Well, there's.
It just says boxes. It didn't say 5-frame or.
Well, here's the thing. If you want to stack boxes, you're talking about supers. And if you put more than 1 or 2 supers on, then all you're going to do is get a distasteful honey because it's going to be blended with a lot of different stuff. And bees are just like humans. If you pull off every frame that is sealed, capped honey, and if you pull a 8-frame box or a 10-frame and you pull 3 frames out, put 3 frames of foundation back, they're more likely to make more honey if you pull that honey off on a regular basis. I pull mine by the bloom. So the more you pull, the more they're going to try putting it back for storage purposes. So it's, when stacking up 5, 10 boxes high, all you're doing is impressing the neighbors or other beekeepers, but you're going to end up making less honey and not as good a quality because it's just going to be sweet. You won't have no definite bloom to it. I start at the red maple. That's when I start pulling honey. If I get red maple out there and it's sealed, I pull it. And I mark everything by the week that I pull it. When the privet comes in, I mark that. And when in the south, we got a lot of kudzu. And a good year of kudzu, I sell that as smurfberry honey because kudzu is in the grape family. It's a wild, evasive, viney type plant, basically grows a foot a day. So that stuff will grow and grow and grow. But when you get the first light blue bloom on kudzu, you start getting other honey off that hive because any honey coming in is going to be blue. So when you start to bottle that up and extract it, it's going to be a light blue to a medium blue, and it's going to taste like a grapey taste. It's a really good seller. A lot of people poo-poo this type of honey, that type of honey, but if you're going to do honey, get more specialized by the bloom and you get a better price for your honey.
Yeah. There's another question there. Are you not supposed to use vaporizer on bottom boards or just a queen castle with the bottom board?
Well, I guess that's kind of a hard question there. A queen castle doesn't have a space for you to run a vaporizer in. That's hard to treat a queen castle and the mini nukes. But the mini nukes, you're turning over bees so fast in them, the mites never hardly get a chance to overtake it. The vaporizer is basically for a 5-frame box that has a full bottom board, standard bottom board, 3/4 high, you can slide your vaporizer in, or a 10-frame or an 8-frame hive. And you can do it in the wintertime, 55 degrees and above. I wouldn't do it at 40 degrees or lower. Even 50s are a little, critical. You don't want to break a cluster up in the northern part of the country. You break your cluster up, you might have a problem. But anytime in the summer or anytime it's 55 degrees and up and the bees are flying, you don't have a mite problem in the winter. Your mite problem usually starts to begin about May, and it starts to peak out the end of July and August. So for people that don't treat a lot, I say do 2 treatments in September and do 2 more in October, and by November you shouldn't have any mites at all in there. You go through winter with no mites, the only thing that's going to happen is, if worse comes to worse, they're going to starve. Mr. Dale's going to come in, I think, or he's going to try. Maybe. Yep. We're queuing up. Somebody asked, how many do I have any tips for transporting 25 nukes 14 hours? If you're going to pick nukes up, you're going to more likely put them in your own box. So I would make a vent hole on top, at least 2 inches, 2.5 inches. I would put at least a 1-inch hole with screens. And when you're doing nukes for transporting, it's a good idea to staple your screens on the vent holes and the top holes from inside. That way, if you stack another box on top, it doesn't slide or knock that screen loose. And on the front vent hole, you won't catch your fingernails up under it. So that's one of the reasons. I mentioned it because I've had people come down here, pick bees up, and have screens on the outside, and somehow the load would shift a little bit and knock their screens loose. Okay, see who we got here now. At least we're getting more people that's willing to ask questions tonight. Don't be shy. How you doing tonight, Garza Farm?
Hey Don, how you doing?
Okay.
Hey, I guess my question is, I joined a local club. Where I don't know nothing, of course, about bees, and we're having bee school here in March. But my question is they are saying that they go all the way to California, Northern California, to get their bees. The only thing that worries me about that is going to California and the Africanized problems that they have out there.
Well, if they're coming off the almonds, more than likely you're not going to have a problem too much with the Africanized bees, but that could change anything. Where are you at? The western part of the country or the eastern part?
I'm in Colorado.
Well, you're going to be safer to get your bees either out of Washington or Oregon. Olympic Farms up there, they're doing an organic program up there, and they seem to have good bees if you can get your ordering.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was talking with the person that runs the bee group out here,
right? And
she says that she sends or that they have a guy. He goes every year to Northern California and picks up bees.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, if they've had good luck with it, I would go on what they're saying. I don't have no actual experience with people out there. They've had problems in the past. Several years ago, they used to bring a lot of bees in from Australia, and I don't know if they was having so many problems, they just stopped that.
Yeah.
The only problem you would have, I would think, is fungicides and pesticides. If you look at some of your large producers that are on the TV or on the news where they've lost hundreds of hives, a lot of that is pollination and stress from moving bees all the time and old comb. I've watched several articles that they've done, and I've looked at the comb. I try to look at for the details. And when you see coffee-colored frames, the wax is so dark, that's old wax, and it's accumulated pesticides and all kind of herbicides and everything else. And California is basically monoculture, so that's another thing that's killing bees. There's no variety of food for them or nutrients or trace minerals. It's just almonds, and that's it.
And then what about, now out here where I live, we are the highest flatlands in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
We're just under 7,000 feet. We're like 6,900. Will the bees be affected by elevation or?
Affected as far as what?
Oh, I don't know, anything.
Well, some of the reports I read several years ago down in the Andes, in the low elevations, they had Africanized bees, and by moving them up to the higher elevations, they wasn't as aggressive and slowly got that Africanized stuff out of them. So, I'm not familiar with that. I know I have people that buy queens from me, Denver, Boulder City, a lot of people out there. At any elevation, sea level or up on top of a mountain, there's always something growing. You might have to
Well, and that's another thing is that we're nothing but prairie out here. Yeah. There's no flowers. There's wildflowers, yes, but on a bad year, you may not see any of those flowers bloom.
Yeah.
Last year was a great year. You couldn't drive by any field and not see just purple flowers and red flowers and the spiggle sunflowers and everything else.
Well, do you own much land yourself?
Oh yeah, I've got 160 acres.
Well, I mean, one thing you might try is, have you ever tried planting buckwheat?
Buckwheat? No.
Buckwheat is a really hardy stuff. It's got its good points. It's got its bad points. As far as honey, you can sell the honey. There's people that love that for a medicinal purpose. They say it has good qualities about it. Personally, I don't like it. It just tastes like sorghum or molasses, or it's got that sulfury taste. It's dark, thick honey. It's like motor oil. They've been changed in a while.
Well, and that's another thing. My neighbor grows about 80 acres of sorghum every year.
Well, I mean, you don't have to feed your bees too much. The only thing you have to watch with sorghum is bees get a tendency to get diarrhea.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But, it's not a big deal. I mean, you could throw some tea tree oil in your feed, once in a while, and that clears it up.
Okay. That was my biggest problem, or biggest thing is, out here you don't see a whole lot of flowers. What are they going to eat other than my garden? But, I mean, my garden is not big enough to sustain them. You're going to have to supplement that. Are you going to raise bees for honey, or are you going to try to raise bees to sell nukes and queens and stuff? I'm really thinking about selling nukes and queens. I haven't gotten. I mean, that's what I'm heading towards. I'm not sure about the whole honey thing. I might see how it comes. If it tastes fine, if it tastes good, especially in the area that we are. I mean, there's people selling honey everywhere around us.
Right. That was what I was basically going to touch on. You're going to have to be in competition with so many people, and there's so many people out there just basically giving it away.
Yeah.
But you're not far from Texas, and I got 3 of my students down there. They're coming here buying nukes for $175 and selling them in Texas right now for $350. Packages are going for $175. So there's more money in making nukes and queens, and don't worry about honey. Buy sugar. Check on the internet, find you a sugar broker where I'm sure they got some plantations down towards, I guess there's some over by the eastern side of Texas. Because there's several places that, big cane fields down there, processors. Get you some number 2 sugar. I mean, it ain't going to hurt the bees. It's got a little dirt in there, packets and stuff, but that's what I have to do. I can't afford to buy retail sugar.
Yeah, they'll clean it up.
Yeah, I mean, or if you have a candy factory around there. A candy factory is another place to get good, cheap sugar. Broken candy canes. We used to have a place over here in Georgia that made candy canes and little breath mints and stuff, and it was in cellophane wrappers, and the little candy canes, when they busted, just throw them in a barrel and with some water on there, and you have to fish all that stuff out. But basically, it's got wintergreen in it, or it's got spearmint and sugar. So basically, you're treating your bees and getting free sugar. So, for $25, $30 a ton, you can't go wrong.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Okay, Don. I appreciate the information.
Right. Somebody want to know how many hives. It went up fast. I couldn't see what it was. Might have to post it again. Oh, here it is on this side. How many hives is needed to operate to be able to support making up nukes and selling nukes? Well, I've had students that started out with 4 or 5 nukes in the fall and had 50, 60 of them in the spring. The problem is, once you start selling, you'll sell your stock down faster than you can replace it. So that's the biggest thing. Mr. Dale's having a problem. He's got a slow download to load his thing for his thing. I think he's back up. He'll come in and cheer us up, I think, tonight. Mr. Dale, have you got in that here yet? Or you got that slow download yet? I guess he's still working his download. Anybody else got a question? Just go over here. Joe can jump back in. Talk to us again.
Yeah, there's another question up there. He wants to know what kind of pollen traps to use. He's wanting to feed the pollen back to his own bees.
Well, you want to make bees, don't put a pollen trap on. I mean, there's the bees, that's their baby formula. They get that pollen, mix it with honey, a little bit of water. That's their baby formula. So anytime you start taking pollen from the beehive, you're going to make some money in the pollen, but the hive's going to suffer a little bit. I don't believe in even adding substitute or pollen patties because you don't know what's in the pollen, where it comes from. You don't have no history of it. And when you start putting stuff in your hive to try to boost it, you might be running into more problems.
I got a question.
There's so much stuff coming.
What do you use eucalyptus oil for?
It's good if you mix it up in a grease patty. It's good for hive beetle control. It ain't going to kill them, but it kind of runs them out. They don't seem to like it. I used to use it in grease patties, and I would roll up a piece about 4 inches long and about like a thin cigar, and I would press it on the bottom board, clear at the back of the hive at that 90-degree place where the side comes up, where you got your bottom board, and I just push it in there. It will keep the mites down a little bit, but boric acid works, I think, a lot better. You just have to get in there every month, every 6 weeks. Whenever they start to propolize the hole shut, you know you got dead beetles in there, and they're propolizing the hole shut for sanitation. So that's one indication to change out beetle traps. And the boric acid is dirt cheap. Sophie wants to know how many tips, or do I have transporting 25 nukes, 14 miles? I think we covered that. The best thing to do is make your own wooden boxes up, and on your lids, get a hole saw about 2.5 inches. It's basically a canning jar lid fits in it. Put 2 on the top, screen them from underneath. Put a 1-inch hole in the front of the hive and screen that on the inside. And then you have good positive ventilation because they can blow the heat out the top, pull air in the front. And when you're stacking them, make sure that you set a 1x1, or basically it's 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches, or a 2x4 split in half. Put 2 runs there where you could stack them, and you have 1.5 inches clearance between one stack and the other. That's one thing a lot of people don't think about. Bees generate a lot of heat, and if you got a lot of bees in there hatching, they could suffocate from too much population and not enough air circulation. But, you know, we can ship as many as 50, 60 in a pickup truck with no problem. Your enclosed van is where you have to be more careful because they'll actually heat the van up.
You got a question there. A guy wants to know if you wire your deep frames or just your honey supers.
Actually, we don't do a whole lot of wiring. We use fishing line, and we only use fishing line on new foundation that we're going to have to ship out within a month to 6 weeks. Because at the honey ban, if you're shipping a box or transporting it in a box and you drop it or bump it down, it's going to bust off at the honey ban right under that top bar. So by putting fishing line in there, you could use it for extracting or you could use it for shipping. We don't even, our honey supers, we don't put fishing line in there. We have a manual extractor, and we turn it slow one way and turn it slow the other way. And it's a little bit slower, but we have never blown any out. Unless you get a student in there that's in a hurry and they just start cranking up high speed on one way. And your extractor works on centrifugal force. So when all the weight goes to one side, it's going to blow out on you. That's just the common sense of it. Well, he wants to know if we could reuse beetle traps. Beetle traps are usually made from political signs that are thrown away. You can find tons of them. In one afternoon, you probably get enough beetle political signs to do 10,000 hives. I wouldn't reuse them personally, because when you look at the edges where the little corrugations are, that's where they propolize it shut when you got beetles in there that's dead. And the boric acid is very cheap. I buy it in like 3 or 4 gallon pails, and I think it runs $30 or something like that. Enough to do a lot. Do I recommend a brand for a foundation mill? Most all the foundation mills are basically, they've got some plastic ones out there. I used to sell them, but I've went all to metal, and I use a 3-inch or a 3.5-inch roller. As far as brand size, metal's metal. One brand is just about as good as another. Buy one that's got good impression on it, adjustable. The ones that we sell here, you can run 5-6 sheets to the pound on deeps, or on your honey supers, you'd run up to 22 sheets to the pound. So they are very adjustable. Most of the time, the major manufacturers don't ship out any instructions on it. So that's why if you buy one from somebody else, I charge you to teach you how to run it. If you get it here, I give you a free learning lesson on it. Scotty wants to know how many hives is needed for an operation. It depends on how big you want to be. If you want to do it part-time, 25 hives would probably support 150, 200 nukes. But if you want to do it as a full-time position, a life, for your income, I'd say 200 to 300 8-frame hives would pretty much support 1,000, 1,200 nukes, no problem at all. Does anybody else get any? Yeah, Thomas wanted to know if do I sell those on my site? I have pictures of the wax mills on my site. I like to sell them to individual or in person. That way I can show them how they work. Because like I say, there's none of them come with instructions. And if you can't run something, it's not going to be much good to you. A good mill is going to run you. I sell mine, the non-commercial one, 2,000, and the commercial one, difference is they got a better handle on there and they got better bearings in there. But the imprinting 4.9 is basically, pretty much standard across the board, unless you're buying standard cell. If you're going to get into bees, I'd recommend the 4.9, have less problems with it. Well, let's see if somebody can get in. Wade's trying to get back in, I guess. Guess he's still having a problem getting in. Maybe got him this time. Joe, you need to reach over there and help him get in.
I'm new to this too. I'm just trying to help you out a little bit.
Yeah. I know. I'm having trouble learning how this. I might go back and start using Google Hangouts. I had the hang of it almost. And I could get 10 people in there that could talk at one time. Well, if nobody else has got any questions in there, I'm going to wrap up tonight. So I'll give a last time or two, see if anybody else got a question. I'm happy to see we have more people joining every single chat. That's good.
Hey, Don.
Let me see. I think Garza wants to get in again. Let's see if he got something. He must have thought of another question.
No.
Go ahead, Garza.
No, I didn't think of another question, but I did think if your moderator can't help out, you can always let me know, and I'd be happy to come and help you moderate this and get this going.
It's hard to watch different sides of the screen, and I'm not a big computer person.
Right.
I had a fella help me last week, and he was kind enough to help me, do the stuff. I don't know how it's going to go. I'm going to wait and see how things go. If I have to, I could run back on. You can get on Google Hangouts, can't you?
Oh, I'm sure I can. That's not a problem.
We had about usually 8 or 10 people all the time on camera on Google Hangouts, and it was just getting to where I finally could get that working.
Right.
I don't know which is going to be the best format. I want to reach as many people as I possibly can, and they're limited to 3 or 4 people on here at a time. And
Mm-hmm.
When I'm trying to watch both sides of the screen to see what chats are coming up or questions as people are typing in, it gets rough.
Right. Well, no, and what was his name? Joe? Was that his name? Joe? Joe
Yeah.
May. He was doing a good job of helping you out, and that was appreciated.
Yeah.
Just like I said, if your moderator doesn't, he can't show up one day or whatever, I'm more than willing to help, and I'm fairly computer savvy. So.
Well, when I first get on here, I thought I had the thing running, but I guess I got to make sure that it says it's recording.
Yeah.
Now I'm having problem getting people as far as putting them on as a co-host. So what am I basically have to do? Put the cursor over on the person's name, or do I go up to the little eggs at the top and click on that, make them a co-host?
I would think that you have to go to their icon or whatever you want to call it, the little egg, and find it, and then click on it and enable them as a moderator.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm usually tied up trying to read this and read that, and it's getting tough thing to do.
Oh yeah, and you got a lot of different questions coming in, and they go up so quick, and you can't even get to read them.
That's the problem. I'm on a laptop, and it's a small laptop, so by the time 5 or 6 people come in, it's done down the road ways. That was good about having a moderator helping you. He's watching the questions and keeping it going good.
Yep. Well, that's the thing. We got to keep you going, so you're answering all the questions and let somebody else do all the reading.
Mm-hmm. Tim wants to know what's the best way to increase hive numbers. Currently has 4 10-frame hives. The best thing I would do is watch the weather when it warms up. Keep the hives in a single story. If you put supers on it, they're not going to make queen cells. They're only going to make queen cells when you pull the queen out of the hive, or if they get overcrowded, or if they get honeybound. Those are the main reasons. And I don't suggest pulling the queen out of hive because they will concentrate on making queen cells more. If you leave the queen in the hive and let them do what they do naturally, you will not hurt your honey production because they got a queen there. They're not concentrating on that. I learned that the hard way. But anybody can make queens by removing the queen from the hive. They're just making emergency queen cells. That's the good thing about doing these little chats. People mention something and it jogs my memory so I can give them a little hand here and there.
Yeah, and then you had somebody asking about what's the best way to keep a ripe queen cell, to always have a ripe queen cell.
Well, if you're rotating enough nukes out there, you can have them just about any time. And you've got a window of 10 to 12 days in there. If you get real good at identifying a ripe queen cell, it'll be dark in color. It'll be a well-shaped looking peanut. And then they start to chew the end a little bit. So the end, about 1/8 of an inch on the end, will be a lot lighter in color. And if you're within an hour or 2 hours, you're going to see where they're starting to chew a circle. You'll see them actually with their mandibles at the end of that cell. That's a little bit risky for new beekeepers. Get them when they're 8 to 10 days old, and you're a lot safer. Okay. All right. If that's about it, I'm going to head out, and I'll post on Facebook on the Fat Bee Men group if I'm going to do it on Google Hangouts next week.
Well, I think everybody's liking this blab here. I know it might be easier for you on Google Hangouts, but on Hangouts, isn't it only like allowed 10 people, and then you don't have like the where everybody can watch it, right?
Everybody can watch it, and on Google Hangouts, you can have 10 people on video camera, and you can. I've had as many as 40 people in there, but they have to use the typing chat. That's the way they can converse.
Okay. Well, I mean, like I said,
What I think I'll do is I'll just post on Facebook. What does people more prefer? What do
There
they
you
feel
go.
more comfortable? See
There
what
you go.
I'm here
Are
to
you-
help the person. So whatever they want to do is I'm just here to answer their questions.
Are you having
All right.
Are you having another chat on Monday?
No. For some reason, I must have got it put up because I was having trouble finding it.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I had to go back. I went back to Facebook and actually looked for what I posted, and I seen there was 2 posts.
Yeah, I went to. I had a hard time getting on tonight. I wasn't sure why or what was going on, but I was having a hard time getting on tonight, and then finally it popped up, and I was able to get on there.
Well, my Facebook on Fat Bee Man's probably loaded because I just glanced through it, and there must have been 50 new posts. I turned my computer off Tuesday, and I've been down off of it since till tonight. So as the season progresses, I stay busier and busier. I got new students coming in here all the time, and we work our students 9 to 5. So that don't give me a whole lot of time, and we're trying to build a bunch of stuff. We just got 2,000 frames in, so we're in the process of putting that together, building new feeders, building new boxes. My son's coming in with me now, so I'm trying to run triple the amount what I should be running out there.
Mm-hmm.
So
okay, well, like I said, if you need any extra help, give me a holler.
Okay.
I try to be here,
I'll be glad.
and let me know. My name is Chris, by the way.
Chris, okay. I'm bad on names, but I'll try to remember it. What you might have to do on that right side of the chat is type something in there, and I think that's how I got Mr. Campbell. Eliza thing last time, I was piddling around here, and I think I clicked on the right side of it, his little picture or something there, and then he come up as a co-host. So
Okay.
until I figure this stuff out, you might want to do some research on the thing. I tried watching YouTube videos on it, but a lot of them are too far along,
Yeah.
They're not explaining a lot of detail.
Well, I'm usually trying to keep up with your chats and on here anyways. And if I see that you don't have a co-host, I'll
Okay.
get on there and
I'll
go do some research and see if I can find out how to work this a little better.
The main thing on people that's jumping in the chat here is if they watch the YouTube channel, I have I think there's 2 channels. The students are usually helping me, and my first channel was put up. One of my students come over, he typed my email address for the password so fast he missed 1 number. So there's some videos up there on the early Fat Bee Man group or channel, but the new one has got like 300 videos up. That's the one. And I learned from the mistakes. I run 2 email addresses now so that if one doesn't work, you have a backup.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to promote beekeeping in a way that you don't have to spend a lot of money.
Oh, and that's appreciated, Don. Believe me, it is appreciated. And looks like Kiowa66 says that they created a poll on your Facebook account to see what they would like, whether Blab or Google Hangouts.
Right. Well, main thing, people that's watching, I know there's a lot of people that work different shifts and they watch this because it's recorded up on YouTube. Main thing is to like the channel and subscribe to it, because if we end up putting an extra video up in between times, you get a notification that it's up there.
I get them all the time. I subscribe to you, and actually I have the YouTube Red, and I'm able to download the videos onto my phone, and I listen to them while I'm working out on the farm. Yeah.
Well, one person was telling me this particular chat, you can do them as a podcast or you can do them as a download up to YouTube. So I haven't figured that out yet. So I guess they save them.
Yeah, they do. I'll take a look and see if we can figure something out.
Okay. All right. I appreciate it. Everybody, appreciate you stopping in tonight, and we'll try to see you next week. Everybody have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you, Don.